833-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello
Welcome
Houston. Back. Frank, Celeste, and I are here just decompressing and having the mayor in the
I
house.
mean, we used to talk at Channel 2 that, if Harris County, just the population of Harris County, was its own state, it would be the 25th state in the union.
Yeah.
He was talking about the population of 2.3 million in Houston and then another 700,000 visiting. I mean, it's just a crazy amount of people here and so much to deal with because every one of us comes with our own infrastructure needs.
Yeah.
We all want water. We want hot water. We want shower pressure. We want drainage to be solved. We want a place to park our cars. I mean, we all have, every single one of us has an individual category of needs.
And before we move on from that topic, having Mayor Whitmire with us, I do want to recognize we know that we had an influx of calls and we weren't able to get to them, but we want to just say thank you for calling. Thank you for watching and listening. We hear you. We see you. We are going to try to make sure that if you have those questions, email us. The mayor said he's going to come back, and so we want to make sure that we are able to get y'all some answers.
And
the park board, head of the park board, to come back, because most of these calls that were on hold were about biking.
Yes.
And we couldn't just keep taking one bike after one bike after one bike question. We addressed that, we answered it, but we could do a whole segment dedicated to that, certainly in the next couple of weeks.
And regardless of your politics and where you feel on it, the idea that the mayor is making himself accessible and said he would like to come back and regularly join us here gives us all as a community an opportunity to find out more beyond just the headlines. You can also, of course, follow the reporting we do at HoustonPublicMedia.org or right here on our station. And talking about our station, Celeste, we had Lisa Shoemate in here yesterday, and she was telling us about helping to shepherd this show onto the air and then hanging up her GM hat here.
That's right. And so here we are passing on the baton. We'd like to welcome Houston Public Media's very own Josh Adams. Josh is the new general manager here at News 88.7.
Hey, good morning.
That happened quick. Just yesterday, there was someone else with that title.
Exactly. Well, look, it doesn't take effect until June, so I've got a little bit of a runway here. But look, I've been at Houston Public Media for more than 13 years. And so for me, it's been a 13-year run, which is now I get rewarded with another run. And it's really, really exciting to be able to continue to lead this great team, yourselves included in that list of great folks doing the Lord's work here in Houston.
There was a lot we talked with Lisa yesterday about getting us to the position to have this show and put it in. And what people might not know, a lot of what you did over your time here up until now was the infrastructure and getting us into the position. We talked a lot on the air in the past that during the pandemic, thanks to the foresight and what we were doing, we were all able to continue to broadcast remotely because we had thought ahead and got us with the latest technology. We all were able to broadcast from home. Same thing with the studio we're sitting in right now. This is kind of your dream child of looking to the future.
Well, first, you're absolutely right, but it's not my dream child. I just got to be the shepherd, for an incredible team and really for the community. The donors and the folks in the communities who are ones who said to us, we want more. We want more local news. We want hyper-local news. We need more impact of what's happening currently in the community. And we want it in the places where we want it, and that includes TV and radio, and we're really, really good at that. But it also needs to include streaming platforms, podcasting, it needs to include social media, and we need to be as skilled and have as much rigor delivering that type of content as we are with radio and TV. And so really it's a reaction to what the community is telling us. They're demanding to keep us relevant.
And they want it easy to find.
They want it easy to find. They want to click a button.
Yeah, coming from commercial television, as I did, into public radio, podcasting, and all the other things we are doing, you can get bogged down with lots of ads on your website and lots of commercials on your television. They pay the bills. We're not complaining about that. And we have a different financial platform here. But it does give us the freedom to say, here we are, click a button.
We're funded by our donors. You're exactly right. And that does free us to be able to, sort of do what we want when it comes to the way we present things, when it comes to the priority of content versus advertising. We don't do advertising, and so it makes it nice. You're exactly right, Frank. It is easy to make the right decisions when that's all you got to be worried about, making the right decisions for the community.
Yeah. In today's day and age, I'm curious your philosophy as the world changes around us. of what public media is and should be to our community?
Well, look, we feel and have stated that we want to, look at this. I'm gonna read from our brand new strategic plan, which we just released, because we were very purposeful with this. Our vision: an engaged and well-informed community that finds inspiration, insight, and connection through public media. All right? That's pretty clear and that's pretty succinct, and that's exactly who we need to be. I believe that we need to continue to find ways to represent the entire community. That includes people that don't listen to us. That includes people that don't agree with us. We need to find ways to continue to serve them because that's our mission. That's why we're here, to be able to speak for and to everyone in terms of their point of view. Are we asking the questions that they care about? That's part of the reason that this show, I think, is going to be so successful and why I was so passionate about getting it on. A chance to have those discussions really as the voice of the community. We've got 3 unique perspectives in here with you 3. We take calls, we take texts, we take things, we're pulling in and aggregating all that feedback to then ask questions. Hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're hearing. Is that right? Does that matter? How do you feel about it? What should we be thinking about it? That's what this show can be. And I'm really proud that Houston Public Media is the one that's bringing it forward.
Let me ask you this in the most gentle way and let you have a runway of however you want to take it.
Sure.
But there is concern out there about funding
Yeah.
and the future of public media. What keeps you up at night, or how do you see our path through this?
Listen, there's a top 20 of what keeps me up at night, right?
Which number am I? I'm
Bernie
curious.
Manous.
That's right. Look, funding is always something that's top of mind. Here's what matters, and here's what I want folks who are listening and folks who are online watching to really hear. Local news matters. It absolutely matters. And you can sort of put all the conversations about federal funding, about politics, all of that is sort of a below the level of local news. We matter in the community, and Houston Public Media has a firm position in Houston as voices in the community. That's why we're launching shows like this. That's why we continue to invest in regional bureaus. We have one in Fort Bend County. We're about to launch one in Galveston. I've got a plan that we've been working on with my team to roll out at least a dozen more in the next 12 months. And so that's our ability to reach into the community and say, what really matters? Not, we've got to have conversations about the greater Houston area, but what matters in Clear Lake? What matters in Channelview, in Montgomery County, in the Woodlands? Everyone tells me, nope, Montgomery County and the Woodlands, those are different.
People in the Woodlands tell you that.
El Campo, right. But what matters in those communities? That's what people care about, and we've got to be in those communities to tell those stories.
We talked yesterday a bit on the show about coming up with a name for this region. Got any suggestions for us? We want to come up with something clever, smart.
He came from Chicagoland, and he wants it to be like Houston Land or something. I don't know what he's doing with this.
Don't do that one.
And it has gone over like lead bricks.
I don't know. That's one I'd have to think about. Maybe listeners. Maybe you ask your listeners to tell us. I didn't see any of the feedback. I've been monitoring online.
I did get one yesterday, Houstlandia, which I thought was an interesting.
I do have a question for you, Josh. I mean, obviously, this is a major stepping stone. This is a big thing for you. Yesterday, it felt like a big move in the right direction here at Houston Public Media as an organization. For you personally, what does this mean to you?
Look, it's fulfilling a lifelong dream. I started, I've told this story a lot of times at donors. I'll tell it real quickly. My dad is a bankruptcy attorney. He's retired, and he represented an independent station, but a commercial station in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were going into bankruptcy. When your dad is their bankruptcy attorney, you get to go work for him. So when I was 15 years old, I got my first job in television. I have worked in media literally my entire life. And from the very start, I understood what I wanted to do was lead an organization that mattered in the community. I didn't understand that meant public media early in my career. I definitely understand it now in the last sort of half of my career. And so leading this organization at this moment in time in, the most incredible region of the country, Southeast Texas. There's your name, by the way. It really is just a lifelong dream. And I'm really excited to continue doing the great work that you talked about with you guys and the rest of our folks here.
Josh Adams, the new, or soon to be, GM. I don't know where we're at.
June 1st.
June 1st. He will be the GM here leading Houston Public Media into the future. Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. You're doing a great job.
And congratulations. Coming up on Hello Houston, Frank, Ernie, and I will continue continue the conversation with the hottest headlines when we return from our break, and we love hearing from you. Keep those calls coming on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7. Stay with us.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Missy Mazzoli's contemporary opera Breaking the Waves, making its Houston debut at the Wortham Center from April 19th through May 4th. Tickets are available at hgo.org.
This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston, News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Presidential term limits. President Trump is again floating the idea of seeking a third term. University of Houston professor and party politics host Brendan Rottinghaus joins us to answer your questions.
I'm Ernie Manous. As we all know, technology changes at a rapid rate, and it can be tough to keep up with the latest updates. So we've invited the High-Tech Texan to join us, Frank, Celeste, and myself, as we discuss the latest tech the world has to offer and what Trump's tariffs could mean on the prices of our devices.
And don't forget, you can now stream us live on YouTube or find us on Instagram at HelloHouston.show. So stick around because we have a fabulous conversation coming up right after the news update from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Senate Democrats plan to force a protest vote today to block President Trump from imposing tariffs without congressional approval. Senator Cory Booker took to the Senate floor last night to begin a marathon speech that is still going. The New Jersey Democrat protesting what he describes as the Trump administration's disregard for the rule of law.
I can't believe we are here again, with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Americans writing letters, storming into town halls, hospital leaders, private sector leaders, Republican governors, Republican mayors, Democratic governors, Democratic mayors, all saying, "What are you doing in Congress?"
President Trump's reciprocal tariffs are due to take effect tomorrow. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt describes the action as a boon to domestic manufacturing.
The president's historic action tomorrow will improve American competitiveness in every area of industry, reduce our massive trade deficits, and ultimately protect our economic and national security.
However, multiple economists caution that American consumers will bear the brunt of tariffs in the form of higher prices. There's general consensus among analysts that the longer the U.S. engages in a trade war, the higher the likelihood of a U.S. recession. 2 special congressional elections are underway in Florida. NPR's Greg Allen reports Democrats hope to win the seats held by Republicans.
The 2 congressional seats in Florida's 1st and 6th districts were left vacant by Republicans who joined President Trump's administration. In the 1st district, Trump's original pick for Attorney General, Congressman Matt Gaetz, later withdrew and left Congress, leaving his seat open. The other open seat in the 6th district was held by Mike Waltz, who's now Trump's national security advisor. Democrats have contributed millions more than Republicans in both races. In the 6th district, 2 polls still show the Democratic candidate Josh Weil behind Republican Randy Fine, but his 3 or 4 point lag is within the margin of error. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
Immigration enforcement officials are admitting that a man legally in the U.S. was deported to El Salvador by mistake. Here's NPR's Jimena Bustillo.
Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a man from El Salvador, had first been detained by immigration officials in 2019. When going through immigration court, a judge granted him the right to not be deported back to his home country. Still, last month, Abrego Garcia was one of several men accused of being gang members and deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. Immigration advocates have sued the government, arguing that people didn't get due process or the ability to contest the claims that they were gang members before they were sent to El Salvador. The government acknowledges it made a mistake in Abrego Garcia's case, but government lawyers say there's nothing they can do now that he's in the custody of another government. Jimena Bustillo, NPR News, Washington.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Thomas. The city of Houston is facing a multi-million-dollar budget shortfall heading into next year. That's according to a report from that city recently analyzed by the Center for Tax and Budget Policy at Rice University's Baker Institute of Public Policy. John Diamond co-authored the report. He says the city will have to find funding to limit blowback either through cuts to spending or adding additional revenue.
They're probably going to have to think big in terms of either a garbage fee or even bigger in terms of just privatizing or outsourcing garbage collection altogether and saving the city the expense of running a department that isn't doing great.
Diamond was a guest on Houston Matters. He says raises for firefighters and other unexpected expenses have compounded the problem. The chorus is growing, especially from local Democrats, for Governor Greg Abbott to call a special election to replace the late U.S. Representative Sylvester Turner in the 18th District. News 88.7 government reporter Andrew Schneider.
Governor Abbott let a key deadline pass last Friday to call a May 3rd special election for the seat left vacant by the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner. Speaking in North Houston, Menifee said Abbott has a legal obligation to call the election as soon as practicable.
We're demanding that he call this election for the month of June.
Abbott can call an emergency election at any time with just over 30 days' notice, but he can also wait until the next uniform election in November, or even until 2026 when the next regular election for Congress takes place.
If Governor Abbott tries to play fresh and does not call this election for November, I will sue him.
Menifee said the approaching hurricane season makes it critical the residents of the district have full representation as soon as possible. I'm Andrew Schneider in Houston.
And we will be seeing highs in the lower 80s this afternoon, an east wind 5 to 10 miles an hour. For tonight, only down into the lower 70s. I'm Matt Thomas, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America. From local shops to global enterprises, Bank of America is committed to helping businesses of all sizes make every move matter. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/banking for business.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. At the heart of the Texas Medical Center, Baylor physicians and scientists continue to shape healthcare for Houston and beyond through education, research, and innovation.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
Hello. If you're just joining us, you've already missed an hour of the show. We come on at 11 every day, and we're here with you for 2 hours, not just on the radio. You can be watching us on YouTube or through our app, or our website, I should say, and I guess the app also, HoustonPublicMedia.org. Lots of ways to engage with us. Why
it's
are you laughing
nice.
at me?
I'm laughing at you because earlier you called it the YouTubes.
The YouTubes. That wasn't on air.
It's kind of nice. You go to HoustonPublicMedia.org, and there's this big orange banner while we're on, and you just click that, and it takes you right to the YouTube thing.
To the YouTubes.
Yeah.
To the YouTubes.
To the
Yeah.
YouTubes.
Be
a YouTuber.
I did get a chance to look back at us from yesterday, and I realized that my hair is out of control here. Frank and I know from television, you too, Celeste,
Yes.
you know, you think about that when you're on TV. You come into the radio studios, and you don't think about that. So today my hair is slicked down. I'm trying to get
not
control.
quite as Back to the Future professor.
I used to always say to folks, you can tell how my day is going by looking at my hair.
Can you believe it's April Fool's Day?
Yes, I do.
What's your opinion of April Fool's Day?
I'm not a big April Fool's fan.
I hate it.
I don't like it.
I hate it. You know,
I don't like pranks.
Amy Davis at Channel 2, she used to always bring in a box of Krispy Kreme donuts, and you'd open it, it'd be full of carrots.
I first was with you guys on I hate it, and then I thought about it, and I thought, well, I got to refine that. I love causing the pranks. I hate getting pranks.
Well, come on. Of course.
Bernie, that is so you. And I say that because if y'all don't know this about Ernie Manous, he actually went to real clown school, right?
Well, yeah, but not really clown school. I went to a day camp on clowning.
A day
It
camp.
has served me well.
Not even a weekend?
Yeah, but you know what? I may not be the only clown around. A lot of people think there are a lot of clowns in politics. You notice how I made that segue? And every day we're looking at the headlines that are going on, things that matter to you. We invite you to be part of the conversation at 713-440-8870. But starting us off, Celeste, what's our first topic of the day today?
Yes. So President Trump has once again floated the idea of testing the Constitution's presidential term limits. This is a topic his administration has brought up before, challenging constitutional provisions and really pushing an expansive view of executive powers. The 22nd Amendment prohibits a person from being elected U.S. president more than twice, but President Trump said there still could be a way. Here is what President Trump told ABC News earlier this week.
They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that, but I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years, just about, almost close to 4 years. Time is flying.
So changing presidential term limits with a new constitutional amendment would need support from 3/4 of the states. So it's not an easy or quick type of situation. We want to hear from you, a third term or not. Good idea or bad? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Frank?
Well, I think it even has to have pretty big majority approval from the Senate and the House before it even gets to the states.
Right.
And he doesn't have that in the Senate and the House. So, but it's like, it's another day, it's another constitutional crisis around here. It's tiresome.
Right. And to be clear, Trump has also said in several interviews he hasn't given it much thought. And, that he wants to focus on these 4 years. And so I want to make sure that, we're not taking something and running with it when really we have to really look at the context, right? Was a reporter baiting him and saying, hey,
But you also have to look at what we've learned historically from the way he handles these things. He throws a lot of stuff out there and sees what sticks. So he's tossing the meat out to the animals to see what they gnaw at. And if it is, maybe there's something to it. Maybe he will pursue it. So we talked about this even before air today, earlier, about how we're approaching this. And I think there's a pattern of behavior we need to pay attention to here. And I don't know what would happen in the Capitol as far as how they would react to all of this.
Well, he's probably feeling a little bit like a lame duck president. And depending on what happens in the midterms and what happens with some of these races that are being filled in the next few months, he could become a real lame duck president. And I think it's that I could be here for another 4 years after this that's almost a bit of a threat to say, I'm not a lame duck here. Even if you think I am, I'm not.
Right, but I don't think that's necessarily a really strong strategy because we know that if he were to run in 2028, he'd be 82. And age was a big deal within the Democratic Party with Biden. And so to kind of tout that, I'm not sure that's even a great strategy within his own party.
No, I think it depends on who you are. I mean, I think Biden in that first debate showed that he was doddering, to use a term, despite his age. I know people that are very sharp and they're 90 years old. So, I think it depends on the candidate. But what I will say is he could do an in-play where he runs his son. He runs J.D. Vance.
It'd be
I'm not
interesting
saying
to see
that's a
what's
good
going
or
to
bad
happen
thing.
next.
I'm just saying that could be a way that he still has some control over the presidency, even if it's not direct.
We want to hear what you have to say and what you think. Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
We'll also be hearing what Brandon Rottinghaus thinks of all
I
this.
can't
He's going to
wait
be joining us in the next segment.
We're going to get into it with
We got a
Brandon.
lot on that one. But speaking of candidates, Democratic candidate Christian Menefee is demanding a June special election for Texas 18th Congressional District. That was the one held by Sylvester Turner. And Republican Governor Greg Abbott has passed two key deadlines in calling this special election. Unless he makes it a priority, it could linger out there for a while still.
Yeah.
Interesting. We had the mayor on earlier. He was talking a little bit about it. What do you think? There's also some other candidates in the mix. There's also City Council member Amanda Edwards, who's shown she's interested in the race. And also there's talk of former state representative Jarvis Johnson, who actually previously held that House seat.
Well, you know, the seat covers downtown and traditionally black neighborhoods.
Yes.
So it's a very Democratic seat. I don't think delaying it, and we'll ask Brandon about this in the next segment, but I don't think delaying it's going to change the end result. I just think for now, they need as many votes as they can get in the House, and Abbott doesn't want to set that. And if, you know, David would never have slain Goliath if Goliath hadn't have shown up to the party, right?
Right.
Interesting way to put that. I like that one. We're curious what you think about that. 713-440-8870.
And for those of you watching the live stream right now on YouTube, yes, Brandon Rottinghaus is sitting in here, and y'all should see the faces we're getting.
He's not allowed to talk yet.
He's not. He's coming up.
He's
coming up.
You can't tell us. I think it's interesting. Remember back when Sheila Jackson Lee passed away? She died in July, and then in November there was the special election coincided with elections, and Sylvester Turner came in. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. And in the interim, if I'm not mistaken, Sheila Jackson Lee's daughter filled the seat, and then they had the special election.
We'll ask Brandon the exact timing and what it could be and what it will be if Greg Abbott does nothing.
But does it mean anything?
Well, that was my point. Yeah, I'm not sure it does, but it might for the short term. All right, speaking of timing, you've heard about this weather. It's just been absolutely horrible. It's going to be interesting to see if this ends up as one of the worst tornado seasons on record, because it's April 1st and we've already seen deadly tornadoes coming through in March and even in February. And we still have a good 2 months to go, because this doesn't really start to end until June, when it just becomes really hot everywhere. Yeah. It's this juxtaposition of cold air coming off the Rockies and warm air coming in off the Gulf, and you get those mixing up and you get these deadly outbreaks. And so it looks like we will miss any showers really tomorrow. There's another big system, but it's going to be centered up around Minneapolis, Minnesota. When it's that far north, we kind of catch the tail end of it. Mm-hmm. Saturday, we have this bell curve of rain from Friday into Saturday and Sunday, which is to say that this next system will be a little farther south, and so our chances for rain are better. Then after that, it looks dry, and we need rain, but we don't need it on Saturday.
So does that mean Saturday morning T-ball, is it going to be canceled or not?
Not.
It'll be canceled.
Not canceled.
Not
okay,
canceled.
So then my big question for you, and I've asked you this before, if April showers bring May flowers, what do Mayflowers bring? Pilgrims. My favorite dad joke. Can't get away from that.
We'll see how it works out. But, it's already been such a warm, we were talking just the other day. It was 90 degrees. I know. And it's going to be 90 on Thursday. So we're going to get this little front that comes through here. It's not going to do a lot as far as rain and clouds. Maybe a little bit of a break for temperatures tomorrow. By that I mean low 80s, but then we're back to 90 on Thursday.
But you know what? I'll take low 80s any day, because once the summer is here, it is here, and it comes with a vengeance.
On the side of my townhouse, I have a little strip of land. It's, 21 feet long.
We know, we've seen the grill.
But it's 4 feet wide, so it's very minuscule. And we're trying to make it something. And a friend of mine said, but you missed the day this spring you can sit outside. So that day already happened. We got one day in the fall, and then we put the thing away again.
I'm afraid you're right. We don't get a lot of that. But when we get it, October and April traditionally for us are the two most fantastic months. And it looks like this for us will be pretty good. But I think we're going to see continued threats of wildfires across the state, because with these fronts, even though we're not getting a lot of rain, we're getting the wind. And so that's going to be the problem for wildfires. Dry out there. We're not in a drought, but from the hill country off to the west, drought city.
As we wrap this up, I do want to mention April is also National Pickleball Month. Woo! Frank, you should be celebrating already. Frank loves his pickleball.
Yes.
Coming up on Hello Houston, University of Houston professor, party politics host, and a great friend of the show. You can see him sitting here right with us right now. Brandon Rottinghaus is going to join in on the fun, and we're also taking your calls. And on any of today's topics, give us a call, 713-440-8870. We can't wait to hear from you. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com. Support comes from Downtown Houston Plus, with new businesses like Tenfold Coffee Company, Meow Wolf, Barbacana, Punchline Comedy Club, and Bubble Boba. Details at downtownhouston.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Lockton, dedicated to helping navigate the complexities of employee benefits and evaluate costs of prescription drugs and pharmacy benefits. More on the News and Insights page at lockton.com.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, offering new construction with custom options and amenities, mature neighborhoods filled with trees, and urban living. Details at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
Support comes from St. Luke's Health and St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org.
Support comes from Broadway Bank's commercial banking team. Since 1941, committed to helping businesses with their financial needs and growth. More information available at broadway.bank/commercial. Member FDIC.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello there, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Frank Billingsley, and listen, we want to take your comments on today's topics. Perhaps you have something to say about Mayor Whitmire's interview or anything that Ernie has said. 713-440-8870.
So far today, I've talked about my messy hair and my non-existent side yard. So that's what we're talking about. But now to move into something of more substance, we have joining us from the University of Houston Political Science Department professor. Also, he happens to be Houston Public Media's party politics co-host and one of the hosts of Hello Houston's brand new features called Techsperts, the one, the only, Brandon Rottinghaus. Hello there,
Hey,
Brandon.
how are you all?
Welcome, Brandon.
We got lots of questions for you, but explain Techsperts first.
So that's a great question. Techsperts is a short, kind of punchy primer on Texas government, on American government, all the things that you forgot from seventh grade, Texas history or American history are all kind of wrapped up into this kind of question. It's a little politics, it's a little bit of history, and it's a lot of why does that happen?
So how often do we get
on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah.
How often do we get you with those?
Hopefully a couple of times a month. We're churning them out as much as we can. Topics include things like how city council functions. Why is it the case that we have in Texas a 2-year session instead of a 1-year session or just a permanent session? And we'll also get into some interesting questions about how and who cultivates the art collection at the airport, the Bush Airport, by the city of Houston.
It's actually a big deal.
Yeah.
I feel like more than ever, I wish I would have paid attention in 7th grade history because I'm sitting there thinking, more than ever, we are looking at our Constitution.
Yes.
We're looking at how our government works. And at a state level right now, we're in legislation.
And if you know how to work it, you can work it.
Exactly.
And that's what we're finding
That's
more and
totally
more
true.
in today's politics.
Which
Totally
brings
true.
me to my very first point today, and it's Cory Booker's filibuster, non-filibuster. What is he doing, and what can he accomplish doing this?
Well, effectively,
set it up too, so folks know what we're talking about.
No, for sure. Filibuster is sort of as old as the Senate almost. They've changed the rules on this a bunch, but basically the goal is for members to be able to delay action when it's the case that there's some kind of a problem that they see, or they want to have a more robust legislative debate. Oftentimes, it's done in a kind of political setting to just draw attention to it.
But there's no bill on the floor. It's not. He just started talking.
That's the funny thing about it, is that the kind of filibuster in quotes is basically like any kind of delay the Senate comes up to. So, for instance, if there's some a person who's being considered for a particular appointment, then a senator can kind of filibuster this or privately. It's all about the numbers. It's all about trying to kind of see who's going to vote in favor of ending it and who doesn't vote in favor of ending it. But really, it's an attention-grabbing moment. I think for Cory Booker, he's looking for something bigger. Democrats are in a kind of existential crisis right now. Their voters are really mad about everything, and they're looking for a moment to be able to say, this is kind of our stand. So this is at least in part keeping with that.
Quickly before we get to the real serious questions of the day. So he can talk as long until what has to happen to end this?
Yeah, there are certain kind of rules about what he can and can't do. You cannot sort of talk out of bounds of what the particular protocol is. You can't sit down. They can ask kind of friendly questions to you, but you have to keep talking basically
so when
the
he
whole
stops,
time.
It's done unless he passes it?
It's done, yeah. And so now what they need is to have cloture. If they can get 60 votes, then they can effectively end the filibuster. And so that's really what Republicans are looking for. Sometimes, the opposition party is willing to let the member kind of punch themselves out a little bit. And so that's kind of what we'll probably see. But it'll end today. But I think the kind of implication here is bigger. And that's kind of who's next for the Democrats.
Yeah.
So speaking of attention-grabbing moments, term limits. Trump has been mentioning a possible third term.
Yeah.
Is he just playing with the media, or can this actually happen? And I remember when we did our election special show, we had multiple callers ask this before he was even in office.
Right. There's a lot of concern about this, especially on the left, who say, Trump is definitely not willing to kind of follow these constitutional norms. I think that there's a lot that's packed into this. Ernie makes a great point earlier, which is that he likes to play the media. I think sometimes it's just about seeing what people will bite on. Can you get a story for the day? Now, keep in mind that there are hundreds of things happening, some thousands of things happening every day in politics. What politicians, especially like Donald Trump, want to do is to be able to kind of direct attention to the things that they want you to see and away from the things they don't want you to see. So the whole point, I think, again, of Making Good Citizens and the kind of thrust of Techsperts, our new little series, is about making sure people understand the right questions to ask. What are the things they can do to really kind of see through a lot of the fray and understand exactly what's happening?
Well, he wants to control the narrative.
Absolutely.
And he throws things out there to do it.
Yeah.
Why is everyone so heck bent on this term limits for the president? We're not asking about term limits for the Senate and the Congress.
It's a great question. There's a huge literature on kind of term limits for legislatures. The kind of long and short of it is that most political scientists are against it. The reason they are is because when you have those term limits, all it does is reinforce the kind of current kind of negativity in politics. Basically, when you kind of kick out all the people who know what they're doing, these are people who have been in office for long enough to understand the system, and you bring in new people, it creates this sort of knowledge gap. The second is that it reinforces the sort of polarization that happens. All of the new replacement members are all going to be more conservative or more liberal. That means it's going to exacerbate the kind of divide between the parties, therefore kind of hollowing out the middle. So term limits really kind of exacerbate some of those problems that we see in politics, where we'd like to find that kind of meaty middle, people come together, but the term limits really don't always let that happen.
So we have a caller right now online, Jerry from Midtown. Jerry, what are your thoughts? Hi, Jerry, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
You're there. We can hear you a little bit. What's the question?
Well, we hear a lot of people say these days that everything seems to be unprecedented, and I'm not sure. It seems like that's rarely the case. And what I'd like to hear Professor Rottinghaus talk about, if he knows anything about this, is the political climate in, say, 1937, 1938, 1939, leading up to the third term from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I mean, was there a lot of opposition? When did he first suggest that he might run for a third term? If he knows anything about that, I'd like
You
hear
know,
about
Jerry,
it.
you're asking the right guy because he definitely knows he's also a presidential historian. So take it away.
I love this period, too. Speaking of Doc Brown's hair that I already referenced earlier, I'd love to get in time machine and go back and learn more about it. But happily, we actually do have a lot of history about this moment. There was actually debate, furtive, really important kind of engaging debate about whether or not the president should have another term. Remember, this is a period where they're in the middle of a world war. They're coming out of this massive economic depression. This is a moment where a lot of people said, I don't like the president particularly, but I don't want to change horses. FDR leans into this. Donald Trump's argument here is a little more kind of vague, where he says, people want me to do it, right? World. So I think that to some degree, that debate was a serious debate. It's less serious now, and of course, politics kind of takes over a lot of this, but for sure it's the case that at that point, there was real engaging debate that reasonable people disagreed about.
I don't want to start something, but is it possible that Trump would put the country into crisis for exactly that reason? Like a war or an economic crisis, to say we don't need to change horses, I need a third term.
It's conceivable. I don't want to read into his kind of activities as such. You'd hope that a president wouldn't want to do that. But that was the term that FDR used. And they were pretty, I think, effective at trying to communicate to their partisans that that was the case.
But saying that, after FDR got his really fourth term in which he died, they said, okay, no more of this.
Yeah, no more.
That's when we got the 22nd Amendment.
That's a great point. And actually, too, at that point, Democrats really did determine that there was sort of enough, that the constitutional kind of requirements and the kind of ethos of the system really did mean that they wanted to limit how long an elected representative could be in.
Right. And the 12th Amendment, too,
yes,
is important because he can't run for vice president, say, under J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
And then if J.D. Vance stepped down, Trump would become the president again.
Right.
That trick won't work.
It probably won't work. It's never been tested.
What do you mean probably?
Well, I mean probably in the sense that
but it was
never been
just
tested.
so everyone understands, it was precedent not to run beyond because Washington stepped down after his second term and like, I'm not running again.
Exactly.
Setting a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
But the 22nd Amendment made it law.
Right.
So it is a different world when people say, oh, but he can look at the now things are different than they were before.
Totally true. And the laws are fairly clear, but not totally clear. So to Frank's question, this is the kind of Hamiltonian approach, right? That in which I just saw a few weeks ago that, it's sort of a surprise, right? Why would a president stop being president? Well, there is a need, I think, for the presidency to reflect the public will, but also to be able to kind of represent the fact that there needs to be a limit. And obviously those kind of legal requirements are pretty clear. No one's tested it.
22nd Amendment states, quote, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says.
True enough. Yeah, and the issue here is sort of whether or not you can be the vice president and the the sort of president can step
elected.
aside.
What
exactly.
happens if you're not elected? Could you come back in? Yeah.
And the subtext to that, too, says that you have to be eligible to serve as president. And in that case, it's probably the case that they would say that he is not eligible to serve because he's already served 2 terms. Again, a little bit of ambiguity there. I think the court would clear this up pretty quickly, but it would be, I think, one of those moments like the caller asks, are we in an unprecedented moment? And I think the answer is yes in that way, because we're testing the parameters of these legal constraints that we always assume were true, but now are being really pushed.
Well, it seems like Trump is also maybe having it both ways, because according to his narrative, he was elected in 2020. It was just stolen from him.
Interesting.
So
question.
then he couldn't have run for 24.
Right.
He was
so
elected
he's already
twice.
been elected 3 times, according to his narrative.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So now no holds barred.
So
He's out there.
There's no logic in
politics. He might
politics
try to
anymore,
become, and if nothing else, he might try to become Speaker of the House,
right,
which is an awfully powerful position, and he could do that.
There's lots of catastrophizing, I think, kind of, especially on the left, right? For people who kind of worry that this is going to be something that grows out of control, I actually think that it won't come to that. I do think that these sort of institutional restraints will kind of hold and that we'll be able to kind of fashion these things together. But again, it's hard to know because as these political actors continue to kind of move outside the boundaries of what's allowable, there is this worry. So I think people will be concerned until the moment where, it's not a problem anymore.
And I think we have Majed on line B from UH. He was born in Algeria, and he wants to talk with Professor Rottinghaus. Hi, Majed.
Hi. So I know Americans, and myself as an American, we have this thing where we tend to think of America in the way that we think of America in alien movies. Just only America exists. But is there anything to say with regards to the pattern that's being developed and what other countries can tell us about democratic backsliding. And with the Trump administration choosing to prosecute certain people, deny due process for certain people that are like less, they have to extend less political capital for that. Are we in risk of democratic backsliding? Do you see it as a trend that America's following just like the rest of the world is? And also, why are we allowing people to stress test our democracy?
Majed, thanks for the call. Let's toss over to Brandon.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It reminds me actually of Independence Day, right, where the world celebrates the Independence Day from the alien. So there is a kind of, I think, common thread that, at least among democratic countries, that there needs to be these kind of institutional rules in place. I think that there's a strong relationship between inequality and democratic backsliding. This has been something that scholars have definitely seen relationships between. And the U.S. is definitely falling behind on some of these measures. There are concerns about the freedom of the press. There are concerns about how these institutions are functioning through the rule of law. So it's not uncommon to see a pendulum effect. And I don't want to make the case that either you're kind of yes democratic or you're not democratic. There's a real scale here. And that scale, I think, is worth keeping in mind, because for all of the problems and all of the stress tests that you mentioned that are happening right now, it's still the case that you're going to find moments where there is a robustness to the system and the institutional capacity to withstand some of these challenges does exist. That's what the system is for. And I always tell people that, we look at kind of one isolated incident where this kind of particular case is involving, and it's the kind of where, executive challenging the judiciary. Those moments exist and they multiply. And I think if you look at the kind of whole totality of it, then you can definitely get a sense that the system is holding as it's supposed to. And these tests are really important. We need these stress tests to show that the system is robust.
The judges are stepping up.
Yes, and that's what they have to do, and that's the balance of the system. I mean,
Right.
The U.S. system is so complicated, it's so bizarre, and it's a hard thing for kind of students to grasp, but I think that the complexity is the virtue, that it does show that once we have these sorts of moments where they're fighting it out and there is this divide, as long as everyone's respecting those roles, then it will survive, and the Republican can maintain.
Let's bring this closer to home and talk about Sylvester Turner's seat.
Yeah.
What do you think's going on there, and what could go on? And is there really a purpose in this delay?
Yes, politics rears its ugly head in, I think, unusual ways, and for sure it's happening here. You mentioned earlier, of course, that the governor is completely in charge of deciding when there is an election. Now, the typical approach has been that the governor has effectively called an election for between 80 and about 120 days, depending on the circumstances. The last 3 times we've had this happen. But in this case, the delay is really worrisome to people, including, like you mentioned, Christian Menefee, who look at this and say, we need representation in that seat. And if there's nothing done, then they will simply have nobody to stand up for them in Congress. That has serious implications for democratic rule, but also for just constituent services. Most of these things can maintain, like the district offices are still open. You still can call and get help with Social Security or Medicaid or federal grants. But the fact that there's no person who is that representative role could be a problem.
Frank made a point earlier. Well, it looks like we know the seat will stay Democratic.
Yeah.
But during this interim, there is no vote there. So
That's
that's
true.
one less Democratic vote. That's how they're controlling it.
That's a great point. And I think that the Republicans are really worried about this. And exactly what's been communicated is unclear. But for sure, the fact that the Republicans pulled back the Alicia Stefanik's district, her nomination,
Right.
and sort of had her go back to run again.
For people who don't know what you're talking about.
The
just
votes
let
in
me know.
Florida and Wisconsin.
Yes.
Right.
So talk about those for a moment.
Yeah, sure. To just answer Ernie's question quickly, the president had nominated Elisa Stefanik to be the UN
A Republican.
A Republican.
And if she took that position, then that opens her seat, which could then be up for a Democrat could get it. They don't want to change the number, so
Yeah.
you don't get that appointment anymore. Go back to your job.
Exactly. We need you in Congress. And then to
Right.
Frank's point, like there is this kind of sense among Republicans that they're worried what's going to happen. And so that seat, Stefanik's seat, could potentially flip. If it does, then the Republicans are in really grave shape in terms of getting numbers. They're literally, as we talk, debating what to do about the budget. This is something that they have to get done. If they don't, then there will be no money for the federal government to operate. So they're really concerned about this. So all these things things kind of play together. You have to look at the politics of this as three-dimensional chess. It really does have a lot of moving pieces, and I think this is just one piece of it.
Can I pivot a little bit here? What's this with manifest destiny going on? We want Canada, which clearly that's off the table, and now we're after Greenland? What's the point here?
Hey, it's back. Yeah, manifest destiny is all of a sudden back in the news.
Anything past the Mississippi River, we're taking it.
Yeah, totally. I think that the kind of general political spirit of this is that President Trump has long talked about keeping America, America, and that's a challenging thing to do culturally, politically. Right. It's fraught with all kinds of these narratives and controversies, so it's a really thick problem. But certainly for the president, what he wants to do is to say, we're going to be in a moment of kind of Pax Americana. We're going to have a renewal of industrial manufacturing. We're going to have a renewal of kind of American spirit and faith. Those are things that are hard to accomplish as president, but have almost always only come from a president. Whether he's the right visionary for this is unclear. Obviously, there's lots of division, but it certainly is the case that him wanting to kind of go, sea to shining sea is not at all uncommon for presidents who want to make those big grand visions.
Are sea to shining sea. He wants to go further out into the sea.
Yeah, C+.
Yeah.
C prime.
He wants a C+. Really quickly, this is the very last thing. Give me about 30 seconds on it. If you heard any of the mayor today, what are you paying attention to with what's happening in the city?
Watching the mayor's budget, that's going to be the biggest thing. The money is going to be key to Houston's future. And like he implied, this is something that he didn't really kind of do, right? He inherited this issue, but this has been the kind of watchword for the last two mayors. And if they can't get the city's financing right, it's going to be really hard for them to expand city services, to fix what's going on right now, and really just to make Houston the kind of shining example of a place that they want to be.
Always a joy to have you here with us. Always so enlightening, and I feel like I get smarter when Brandon's in the room.
Absolutely.
Or actually, I feel dumber when Brandon's in the room. I hope to get smarter.
Truly, thank you for joining us. Brandon Rottinghaus, UH professor, party politics host, great friend of Hello Houston. And if we didn't get to your questions, send us an email, talk@hellohouston.org, and we will try to go back and get you some answers. Also, coming up on Hello Houston, the High-Tech Texan, Michael Garfield joins Frank, Ernie, and myself, and we are also, again, taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
You rely on Houston Public Media for clarity in a noisy world. Now it's your chance to make sure it's always there when it matters most.
Our spring fundraiser is days away, but don't wait. Give right now to help ensure essential news and powerful stories are ready when you need them.
Take the lead. Protect the journalism you depend on and help start the fundraiser with momentum.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' comp carrier dedicated to handling claims proactively to help injured employees get back on the job and policyholders get back to business. More at texasmutual.com/claims. Support comes from Carr, Riggs & Ingram, CPAs and Advisors, a top 25 nationally ranked full-service accounting and advisory firm offering tax, audit, accounting, consulting, and advisory services. Learn more at cricpa.com.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manus, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman here with Ernie Manus and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Yeah, hello
there. Okay, this is one of my favorite segments.
Yep, technology.
Technology. It's constantly changing, and there's only one person I know of who can answer all of our tech questions, and I know it because he's on my speed dial when I get a new gadget, and I'm like, how do I fix this? Here to tell us more, the latest in technology is the High-Tech Texan himself, Michael Garfield. Hello there, Michael.
My goodness, I don't know where to start, guys.
Well, I'm going to hold you right there and
I don't
say,
know where to start.
If you've got questions for Michael, give us a call, 713-440-8870.
That's not my phone number for my radio show, but
No,
I'll
but
take
you're
it
on
for yours.
our
I'm on
radio
your
show right now.
I'm the one who should be asking you guys questions, but I'm more than happy to answer some.
Okay, good. You're going to answer questions for us. First one I have for you. When did you get the name High-Tech Texan? Where did it come from?
Where did that come from, Michael?
You know what, Frank? You should know my very first media hit or job in Houston was on Channel 2.
I know that.
2001, so it's been 24 years, and I started on the Channel 2 morning news show right before 7 a.m. when they went to back when Don Armstrong, Pauline Chu were the anchors. Chuck George did the morning.
He was terrific.
He was great. And I just got an opportunity. Long story short, I graduated with a media RTF degree, but I grew up in the world of technology. My dad was an electrical engineer, so I learned how he built TVs, literally. And so I took my love of technology, but from a consumer level. And that was right in the dot-com era, the 2000, 2001.
Right there at the turn of the century was the tech explosion.
And I saw a need that someone needed to explain it easily without talking megabytes and gigabytes. Someone needed to make it sexy. Hence, there we go. And then so I pitched a few different TV stations, and Channel 2 came up. And so I needed shtick to answer your question, Ernie. I needed Toucan Sam. I needed Tony the Tiger. So I came up. I'm from Texas, obviously. So I came up with High-Tech Texan, and I trademarked it, and the rest is history. So
And
there
here you are.
Here
Okay,
you are. Yeah.
Make something sexy for me that I still don't fully understand TikTok. I know that the concern is, China's going to get all of our information. I can't help but think every single app we're on, every single thing we do, all of our information's out there. Everyone can get it on the dark web or wherever they get this stuff. So why is TikTok such a threat to us where all this other stuff is out there taking our information every moment?
One of the things that I do not do is I don't play in the world of politics. However, sometimes politics comes in the way of everything,
world of
including
tech.
tariffs and everything right now. But let's go back to your TikTok question. Everything that we use on our phones, apps, whatever, we have to sign. We have to click the end user license agreement, the EULA, that long, boring thing
That none of us read.
Not one person reads about that. But thing is, though, if we don't click it, we don't get to use that app. And as I say, our phones will literally become bricks if we don't give some information. For example, I use Google Maps all the time. Now, I know where I'm going in the city. I've been here for 3 decades, but I want to know where the traffic is. And I want to know where the weather is. So I have to let my map know where I am with that GPS. And at some point, Google, maybe in this case, they're going to know where I am. But at some point, I'm going to give a little, knowing I'm going to get a lot of information back. And so in today's age, we're just going to have to, as I say, suck it up, and we're just going to have to kind of sign off some of our privacy and some of our data to actually just give some information.
But giving a little seems a little trite to me, given the fact that my name, my address, sometimes where I'm going, that's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, but I'm going to give you an analogy over here. So my grandmother, she passed a few years ago. She lived to 103.
You saying I'm a grandmother?
Not at all, but she lived to 103. Never been on a computer, never been on a phone, never did anything but watch your TV. All her information was on the internet. You don't need to be on the internet to have your information as a U.S. citizen or actually anybody on this earth to have your information out there. And
Yeah.
so
If you need
just
an
gotta be
ambulance,
careful.
you want people to know where you are.
Yeah, no, you really
That's
do.
true.
And so we have to give it take. But in terms of TikTok, I think it is a little bit more of a political play because, yes, it is owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese-owned company. But the funny thing is, there's a lot of other Chinese-owned apps that we are using right now.
That's
but
the part that always confuses
because
me on this
TikTok was
topic.
so popular. It is so popular. And not
Yeah.
only do they own TikTok, which is a very popular social media, but also I don't have TikTok. It's probably one of the only few social medias that I don't use. But I use another product from ByteDance. It's called CapCut, which is one of the easiest video editors ever. I mean, I've told my people in TV to use CapCut, but it's also, they're taking all my information. And so, listen, it's so simple, but you know what? I have nothing to hide. I really don't. Let China just
You just
take
don't want
everything.
it to go further than your address and your name, like to your bank account number.
We don't want that.
That's what we don't want, where they could really get in, because if you keep banking information or Zelle or something like that on your phone,
Don't use those in
and then
public
your
Wi-Fi, then.
right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then your phone is vulnerable.
Right.
That's one of the problems.
By the way, can I have your bank account number, Frank?
We're talking with the High-Tech Texan himself, Michael Garfield, and we want to hear from you. Give us a question. We want to know your tech questions for the High-Tech Texan. 713-440-8870.
Okay, so I was wanting to build some built-in bookshelves in my living room, and a neighbor of mine said, okay, got to remember to keep a space for the TV. And then he said, but don't worry, TVs are never going to be bigger than 100-inch because you'll want to be able to carry them in your cars, and that's the limit to what you can get into a car to commute it with. Well, that was a couple months ago,
Who
and
told
now
you
I'm
that? The
seeing
Low-Tech Texan?
the low-tech, my neighbor, the low-tech
Yeah,
Texan.
I have that trademark too.
What's going on in TVs and the size of these TVs and these short-throw projectors and the cheap projectors and the expensive projectors? What?
My friend, you just answered almost my question, because for the first, when I started in Channel 2, Frank, going back in the day, digital TV just came around in 2002, 2003. And then the biggest question I got, Michael, do I want an LCD or do I want an OLED? And then maybe the max was about 50 inches. And then they were very expensive. I mean, the first one was about $15,000 for a 50-inch TV. Now you can get a 50-inch TV for pretty much $200, especially at Thanksgiving time. And then TVs got bigger. The question is now, Ernie, I've been talking about projectors, because projectors are getting so, number one, so inexpensive, but the short throw, you actually can make a screen size anywhere from 50 inches, but the further you pull it away from the wall or your white sheet or whatever you're projecting on, you can get it to 120 and 150 inches. You could take them inside, but you could also take it outside to have a pool watching party. I have some that are $200 to maybe $500. Projectors now may be the thing to look at, other than TVs, because they are so much better, inexpensive, and they can go anywhere.
But you've already lost me. Okay,
Yeah.
I buy a projector. What am I supposed to do with it?
Okay, a lot of them now are Wi-Fi, built-in Wi-Fi, so you hook it up to your Wi-Fi, and I don't know what service you use. I don't know if you use
All
Xfinity,
of them. All of
YouTube
them.
TV.
I'm a sucker for all of
Got
those.
this. Some of the ones I use, they come with a remote control. They come already built in with Netflix and Prime. All you need to do is hook it up to your Wi-Fi, put your password in, and you're set to go and use it. That's how simple and light they're
I
getting.
could have a White Lotus pool party watch party this Sunday.
As long as you tell me your address, partner. As long as you tell
now
me your address.
I got one more projector
I bring
question for
cookies,
you.
yeah.
I know. We'll get to the cookies in a
Okay,
minute,
yeah.
too. I see the ads for screens, and they've got like some with a reflective backside, black side on them. Just hang a sheet in your house. Just shoot it on a wall. Don't put it on a wall. What's the best way to see the best picture?
Well, number one, you want is if you can get as dark of a room as you can. That's
Well,
better,
yeah.
because you don't want the outside light, the windows. Always try to close your shades, especially in the daytime. The other thing is the most important color, and this is maybe a little bit too technical, of a TV. There's red, there's green, there's black is the most important color.
Right.
The black is the black screens. That's where you're going to get into your higher end TVs. When it's turned off, that's black. But I like these. You're seeing companies now have light that are projecting behind it, okay? It's because it throws off a beautiful hue of blue or things like that.
I hate that.
That's
hate that
it's for aesthetics.
Yeah.
Does not help the picture quality whatsoever, but you do
But
want
for a
to-
screen, do I want a black backed screen? Do I want a transparent screen? Can I just use a sheet? Does any of this matter?
do not need a transparent screen. I saw some at CES in January. They're only, I don't know, $40,000 to $50,000 for a transparent
Lord.
screen. It doesn't make sense. And that's the fun thing when I go to the Consumer Electronics Show.
Yeah.
I see things that I talk about, and people are like, Michael, what's the coolest thing in the world? I'm like, well, I'll tell you, you ain't going to be able to afford the whole
Right.
thing, transparent TVs. Go out and buy something in a price range. If you want, there's no reason anybody really, because don't even worry about 4K, because there's not a lot of things that are even shot in 4K.
That's
or
the problem I
broadcast
have
in
with
4K.
the bigger images is that the content we're using isn't made for all
It's
this.
not there. 8K, laughable. 16K, don't even believe that stuff.
Coolest thing you saw at E CES?
Coolest thing I saw at CES. CES has turned almost into an auto show. I'm seeing new automobiles, new features inside autos, the safety features, a little bit more electric features, and now the question is, can we afford them with these tariffs coming in? See, that's called the segue, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, see, you did that well. But we're going to segue you back.
Okay.
We have a call from Portland, Oregon. Joe.
Hey, Joe, what's on your mind today?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm listening to my favorite people, Michael Garfield, the High-Tech Texan, and the weatherman. I just forgot your name.
Frank Billingsley.
So Frank, yeah, sorry, Frank.
No problem.
Frank is,
It's his show.
Frank sponsors a golf tournament, and Michael and I go back to the Art Hard days.
Well, what's your question for them?
Real quick, my wife is trying to convert me to a Mac, and I've been using the traditional HP. How difficult is it to convert all my data from my traditional HP to a Mac?
So going from Windows to Mac?
Boy, listen, if you're a longtime listener over there, you know I'm not the biggest Mac fan. I don't have any Apple gear. I'm an Android guy. I'm a Windows guy. That's what I am. However, I'm never going to convince anybody to go from Android to an Apple because it just won't happen. They're fanboys. You're in the infrastructure. My wife has it. My kids have it type thing. But to answer your question quite simply, it's not hard to convert the files if you have a lot of Word documents. Everything in terms of photos and videos, they're all pretty much JPEG. They're all pretty much MP4s. And so they are going to transfer pretty easily. And so you're going to take some time, obviously. I usually either put them up in the cloud and then take them down from the cloud, but it's not hard to convert. It is just a paradigm shift of using the different type of mouse and using the different ecosystems, but the files are going to convert easily between one and the other.
Okay, I had a nice big hard drive on my computer. It crashed. Can't do anything to get it back.
I got that call, I think.
I look and I see, yes, you did get that call. I look and I see these data recovery services.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take my hard drive for just $500. They'll bring back 96% of my data. What's the truth behind this, and why is it so hard to get data off these older hard drives?
Well, the older the hard drives, number one, they can get dusty, and technology, and some of them are now solid state, and some of
That's
them are...
what you want now.
Yeah, some of the solid state. The other ones, there were disks that...
Right. Can I get any of this back?
Thing. You actually can. There are these data recovery centers, and they're not cheap. You know why? Because it's like an air conditioning service in the summer. You know they're going to charge it when you really need that information.
But is it real? It's worth it? You give
some
it,
of them
will
are
get
real.
you most of it?
I would do a little research. Let me go to this company. Let me talk to them. Can you talk to one or two other people who have actually used the service? But I have recommended those years. And there was one or two in Houston. I forget, about 10 years ago. I don't know anymore. But those actually are real. But real question, before you even get to that point, back up your data. I've started doing this in 2001.
I did. I backed it up onto this hard drive that doesn't work now.
That's what the cloud is for right now. Because it's
I don't like that. I want it all in my house.
I understand that. Well, then don't laugh. Get 2 backup terabyte data drives. I call it belts and suspenders is what I call it. Make sure you keep your pants up.
Good advice from Michael Garfield. Okay, High-Tech Texan.
Yeah.
Let's talk tariffs.
Tariffs.
Yes. How's it going to affect us?
It's going to affect the world. And again, we're trying to not to bring in politics, but this is all about politics. The current administration, we'll just leave it at that. They think that, and I don't want to use the bullying, but let's try to get America back on track of selling more American everything. And I think it really does affect the car and automobile industries, which is something that I've covered for 15 years. I'm a member of the Texas Auto Writers Association. I don't even own a car. Every single week for 15 years, I test drive a car. And I've driven almost 1,000 different cars. These are electric. These are sports cars. These are minivans. And so I understand the automobile industry. I don't deal with dealerships. I deal directly with the manufacturers. And it's the manufacturers who are now sweating right now. Tomorrow is Liberation Day, allegedly April 2nd, where I think the tariffs potentially up to 25% are going into effect. And what you saw over the past week are car dealerships having pre-tariff sales. They are worried that it's going to go up. The average cost of a car last February, $47,000. Now imagine adding 25% onto that thing. And so people are worried when it comes to groceries, but I think the biggest talk right now are these cars, electric and regular gas-powered vehicles.
You mentioned when you talk about the tariffs, you talk about the American tech industry and what the... Are we ready to be that leader, or are we dependent so much on foreign countries when it comes to our technology? Can we lift it and still have good pricing?
Ernie, there is not one car on the market that is 100% made in America. We are very, very dependent. Even
Tesla?
Even Tesla. Tesla, 15 to 40% of its parts are from outside of the country. Good, Frank, I know you're going to ask that question. That's a very valid question. No, we love it. It's a Texas-based company. I'll promote everything that's Texas, but the fact in some of those parts, I'm not going to say the majority, they're from outside the United States. And I think the way that, believe it or not, as close as an advisor is to the president right now, who is big into the EV industry, I don't think this administration is big on the EV industry. And we've seen kind of pullbacks for the last 3 years. GM, Ford, and a lot of the other American manufacturers, they almost went all in several years ago. It's all going to be electric. It's all going to be electric. They're backpedaling right now. Now hybrid is the way to go. I'm a big hybrid guy. I think it works, but I'm not a big electric guy right now.
Back from the cars, back into just tech in general.
Mhm.
There's so many places we're getting overseas the cheapest we can spend for whatever technology, and that's fueling the market. People keep buying things, disposable technology. Is America set up to be able to offer all of this kind of technology at these low prices, or is it these foreign countries are able to do it because of the cost of producing?
Right now, it's a foreign country. You look at China right now, and that's really, I think, why the tariff stuff's coming in.
Yeah.
China can make an EV and sell it probably for $15,000 to $20,000 American. America does not want that coming in because that is massively going to undercut a lot of the other American cars. That's where these tariffs coming in. I mean, you've got manufacturers like BYD and Vinstar. These are Chinese companies. I've seen these cars. I've been in the cars. They're pretty impressive. For $20,000, hell, I'll take 2, I'll take 3, but you're not going to be able to pay that price here in the United States, and this is why the tariffs are coming in. So I understand it. We do want to make, listen, I'm so American. We want to make America great again. Don't know if this is the way,
Last
but this is going to
question
be a
for
big
me:
hit.
how many megapixels should a picture be on my phone these days?
Generally, phones have 12 megapixels,
Do
but
I
obviously,
need that?
yeah, because you're beautiful, by the way. And this is the first time in 20 years I've never seen you with sunglasses, so I'm freaking out, by the
Right
way.
here. They're right here.
Get a 50 megapixel, and by the way, I bring gifts. I've got cookies and balloons.
Oh, my
This is the
Lord.
way to do
Thank you.
radio. For 23 years, I've been doing it on my KPRC 950 show. Bring
Michael.
in and suck up to the hosts.
Thank you, Michael. Thank
Hey,
you.
congrats on the launch of this. This is great. I wish you seriously the best. This is a really pretty intense setup. I mean, I'm embarrassed. We have no budget. This is phenomenal.
No neon in your studio?
We got nothing, baby. We got nothing. You got TV, you got everything. I love your setup, so congrats to you all.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Michael Garfield is a TV personality and radio host. He is also known as the High-Tech Texan. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today in our fabulous studios at Hello Houston.
I'm taking
He's also known as Garf.
I'm Garf.
Garf.
Very tight, exactly. Garf. Love you guys. Hello, Houston.
And that's a wrap of Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow from 11 to 1 p.m. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, and at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Thank you for listening to Hello Houston and joining in on the conversation. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news.